In this episode, another treat from last week's LawDroid AI Conference 2026 is Bridget McCormick's keynote on the not-too-distant future of dispute resolution. Enjoy.
Our keynote speaker for day one, Bridget McCormick, who is the president and CEO of the AAA. Bridget, I turn it over to you.
Thank you, Satish. Thank you, Tom. Thank you all for having me here and letting me give this keynote today. It's exciting. Can't think of a community I'd be more excited to present to. The AAA is a 100-year-old dispute resolution provider. It is a nonprofit. And I will tell you more about its sort of founding mission later on in the talk. But I hope you will also get to hear from my teammate, Maya Markovich, who's on a panel sometime today or tomorrow. Maya, I can't remember. You can put it in the chat, but I'm excited. Anyway, I want to do two things today. I want to share the vision that we at the AAA have for a very bright future for dispute resolution, in part because of artificial intelligence and in part because of our mission and how we're leaning into it. But not to bury the lead, you may have seen that the AAA ICDR recently became the first ADR organization in the world to offer AI native dispute resolution. But this is a story not only about what comes next, but what came before. And our decision to build the future of dispute resolution is really tethered to our history and to our founding mission. We celebrated 100 years in February, and over the past century, we have set the standard for ADR. And in the last 2 years, we administered over 500,000 disputes. But before I dive in, I want to explain in sort of from 10,000 feet how we think about progress, especially with this new technology, because I think that mindset will inform what you hear from me today from now on. Building in the middle of exponential change can be extremely paralyzing, and for whatever it's worth, this is how we approach it on four principles. We ground everything in data, and legal data is imperfect, as you all know, but there is a lot to learn from what we have. We anchor every decision about how to create better dispute resolution and better experiences for parties who have to resolve disputes to our mission. We move fast because we believe that action leads to information. We're not waiting for a white paper. If you've heard me talk recently anywhere, you'll know that I bristle at the idea of task force. It's not the time for task forces. We believe we learn by doing. And finally, we are operating on the premise that AI is not an incremental shift. It introduces an entirely new set of rules, and the future we are building will not look like the past. And that means we're going to have to lead with imagination, not just compliance, with a growth mindset and not a fixed one. Okay, so here's how I'm going to go through my talk. I'm going to start with some information on data and trends. I'll probably do that fast because I feel like everybody here understands most of that, but it tells a compelling enough story to lead into the rest of the agenda, where I'll show how AI building grows directly from our mission at the AAA. And after that, I want to explain how we've prioritized doing over discussing. And finally, how we're preparing for new baselines that require us to reimagine how we work, how we deliver value, and how we lead. Let me go back for a minute. This framework that I mentioned became my compass when I stepped into this role. And so let me say a little bit about that. I accepted the position of the CEO at the AAA in September of 2022. At that time, I was on the bench. I was serving as the Chief Justice of the Michigan Supreme Court. I wasn't scheduled to start the job until February 2023. I was going to finish out the year on the court. And that meant that just as the legal world was being kind of jolted awake by ChatGPT, just as Sam Altman and OpenAI became household names, I had a little break the month of January to be able to really dive in and learn everything I could about this technology that seemed pretty clear to me was going to have an impact on my next career chapter. And many law firm and other legal leaders I've spoken to have admitted, even now, somewhat sheepishly, that they haven't really gotten around to AI themselves yet, not because they're not interested, not because they don't see the potential for change, but because their bandwidth is consumed by everything else, geopolitics, hiring trends, emergencies. I've been trying to write a law review article for 30 years, and it has a great title. It's called Let's Do Emergencies Last. And I haven't written it yet, but one of these days, or maybe not, because I no longer think law reviews is the place to publish things. Unless you're in law reviews, then I think your law review is amazing. But I think my point is, across the profession, people think it's important, but they haven't been able to take the time that I feel now, in retrospect, very lucky to have had. I wasn't yet burdened with a new inbox, and really incredible time in life. Like the in-between inboxes moment is as good as it gets. So I had this luxury, and in my view, frankly, a responsibility really to go deep. And the deeper I went, the more I realized this was not another wave of legal tech. This was a platform shift. And what floored me wasn't the output. I mean, you'll remember the output was fun and clever in January 2023, but it wasn't, life altering. But I was already taken by the comprehension. Ilya Sutskever captures this, like, I think perfectly in one sentence when he said the most surprising thing, if I had to pick one, would be the fact that when I speak to the models, I feel understood. And that is a clear opportunity for a dispute resolution provider. Because if there's one thing that matters in any dispute resolution process, it's that the parties feel heard. Probably everybody on this call knows that there's a robust literature on procedural fairness, sometimes called procedural justice, that can be summarized like this. If the parties feel like they were heard in a dispute resolution process, they'll accept an adverse outcome and still grow trust in the process. They'll come back. This is really important in courts, because today's parties are tomorrow's jurors or tomorrow's witnesses. And making sure that the 50% of parties that walk out of the courtroom not with the outcome they were hoping for continue to believe in the process is table stakes, has to be done. And now suddenly there was a technology that could not only technically process language, a magic language calculator, if you will, but it could do so in a way that felt empathetic and even human. And that felt clear to me, even 3 years ago, a little more, that this was going to be a significant moment for humanity. So when I walked into a new job at the AAA in February 2023, I was already convinced that AI was going to be the most important shift in our lifetime, that we were only getting started, and it was going to accelerate rapidly and exponentially. And it was going to have deep impacts on alternative dispute resolution and the broader dispute resolution ecosystem more generally. My views then, I think, were well informed, but I still hoped they would turn out to be correct, because those were some big projections I was making. And we would soon see a lot of data that would confirm them. 3 years later, we know that ChatGPT was the fastest adopted application in history. It's not even close. What's amazing, which I only thought about this recently, is that when these statistics are true, even though ChatGPT did not have a native mobile app until 6 months after it launched. Do you remember that? We all had to log in on our laptops. You couldn't talk to it on your phone. And the adoption across large enterprises has been just as jaw-dropping, although they have lagged their employees. For a long time, we were all sneaking our AI into work, not at the AAA, but in many places. A recent MIT study showed that 90% of employees surveyed had used AI at work, while only 40% of their companies in which they worked had purchased an AI solution. The employees are not waiting. They're just sneaking it into work with them. I started presenting to judges about the technology and what it might mean for their workplaces and their service delivery. And I can't tell you how many judicial audiences have told me that they don't have any AI tools, so nobody at their court uses AI. And I always say there are definitely people at your court using AI. They're just using it at home and importing it into their work. In 2024, we saw enterprises exploring AI, but in 2025, things were really changing. According to Menlo Ventures, enterprise spend on generative AI was projected to grow by 500% between 2023 and 2025, and 40% of that AI spend was now moving into operational budgets. So it's not a technology project that sits over in one department. It's no longer experimental. It's core infrastructure. 95% of chief legal officers at companies with at least $250 million in ARR said they have reallocated budget towards AI tools across their enterprise. According to BCG, IT budgets are growing at 4.6%, up year over year, and AI is no longer sitting in the innovation lab. It's now core infrastructure. The data just continues to compound and support the idea that this is a platform shift. These are the investment priorities in some ways are like the strongest strategic signal that you could have, and they're extremely clear. We're finally seeing the same across the legal profession. According to Law 360, the number of lawyers using AI for at least one purpose jumped from 35% in 2024 to 54% in 2025, which is a significant increase for lawyers in 1 year. And the TR Future, the professional survey, showed similar numbers. 61% of legal professionals are using AI tools, up from 50% the year before. And they aren't just headline numbers. They're expected to save, according to lawyers, 250 hours annually. 53% say their firm has already experienced one clear benefit from the AI use. This one to me is like in some ways the most telling of all. The more lawyers use AI, the more optimistic they become about it. According to Law 360's survey from last year, this time, 94% of frequent AI users say it has made their work easier. 73% say these changes will benefit their legal practice overall. Fascinatingly, or maybe not so much, those who have not used it are less optimistic. Only 11% of them are optimistic. And they also don't believe it will impact. In fact, they think it will damage the profession. It's a unique kind of enthusiasm that we don't usually see in legal tech. We've all seen tools that have promised efficiency and delivered only frustration. Don't even, let's like leave e-discovery behind. But as you know, there's been like lots of frustration over the decades about legal tech. You're probably seeing this. To the extent law firms are slow to adopt, their clients are kind of losing patience. Ford Motor Company was early to this. They were actually in the early beta to figure out how it was going to impact their work before TR bought Casetext. Sorry about that. And they started asking their outside counsel, even in 2023, how they were using this technology to save them money. And there were follow-up letters that made it clear that if they were not going to use it to save them money, they were probably not going to have a relationship with Ford Motor Company. I've seen this across many in-house teams across the country. I did a ALI panel that the American Law Institute has its annual meeting in May. And last May, Angela Tripp, who I know is moderating a panel, and Jen Leonard and I did a panel with Darth Vaughn, who runs legal ops at Ford Motor Company. And the room of ALI members was quite skeptical still at that point about whether the technology was, mattered to the business of law or the practice of law. And I think Darth Vaughn gets frustrated and just doesn't really feel like it's his job to convince anyone anymore. And this quote, I think, put a chill through every spine in the room. I'm not only your firm's client, I'm your firm's competitor, and I think every day about how I can disrupt your work and bring it in-house. So I'm seeing that increasing, that there is just more and more activity happening across in-house teams than with their law firm partners. investment in legal AI can barely keep pace with adoption. VC funding is up year over year, and we're seeing more and more builders that are building legal products. Y Combinator's Jonathan Levy said in a public interview sometime late last year that they're seeing more high value talent building legal products than they've ever seen. I know there's like lots to build because it's been a while, but still, it's an attractive space to people. And timelines are condensing. I mean, you've seen Harvey's valuation skyrocket. This slide needs updating, making it the fastest legal tech company in history to reach any of the benchmarks it has reached. And some of the legacy businesses are scrambling to partner with or invest in or acquire this new batch of tech companies. And this is fascinating to me. It's unlocking new categories of legal tech buyers, including lawyers in fields that have historically been underserved by enterprise legal technology. So I don't, there are startups like TrialKit. I recently interviewed the CEO of TrialKit that's building for criminal defense and really working on evening the playing field for criminal defense lawyers. I was surprised that there was a market, and there is absolutely a market. Of course, it makes sense. Even Up, of course, in personal injury. There are others like Even Up, Spellbook for small businesses. I don't mean to single out specific companies, but the point is the legal tech is being built with AI for parts and segments of the profession that have historically not gotten the attention from legal tech companies because they were not the deepest pockets. And I see that as an excellent thing. At the same time, you all know that regulatory walls are beginning to crack. Obviously, Arizona authorized some ABS licenses, including one to KPMG, that predict a different future of how legal services are delivered. And capital is going to follow if regulators are prepared to admit multidisciplinary investor-backed models that promise broader access at lower cost. Tennessee recently made a similar announcement that it's considering the Arizona path. So even though I told my team in 2023 that AI was going to change everything, it was hard for me to imagine it would move quite as quickly as it did. I share Tom's view from his opening comments that in some ways it's sped up over time. And this year it feels very, very hard to keep up with, even for those of us who are working in the middle of it. Like Tom, I try and read everything I can. And it feels very, very hard to keep up with the pace of change that we're seeing on the technology side. But that has guided us. 1 minute about what we're seeing on the agentic commerce, in the agentic commerce lane. You have probably seen many, many announcements by businesses that are in the payment space and businesses that are in the agent building space about how quickly the agentic commerce market is moving and building. This is a space where I believe we need legal voices to help us think about what this market looks like. And right now, the enterprises and the technologists are moving faster than the legal community. If you're more interested in that, contact me. I'm thinking about that all the time. Okay, so in 2023, I predicted a lot of change with this technology, and I was pretty sure it was a good fit for expanding access to dispute resolution. And I feel only more confident about that right now. I think AI's best legal use case may be dispute resolution. I mean, at its core, we have two parties asking for a neutral, reasoned decision from a process that's fair, consistent, and affordable. They want a resolution. They don't want lawyers or arbitrators or judges. We're just the tools they have right now to get there. But AI is giving us additional tools that can get us to fair, consistent, and affordable solutions. So what does that mean if you're in the dispute resolution building space, and especially if you're lucky enough to be a nonprofit that can invest significantly in R&D? It means it's time to figure out what that might look like. So I strongly believe that action leads to information, that task forces and committees and meetings are useful, but it takes a lot longer to get to information. And when you have a general purpose technology that arrives without an instruction manual, I think this is more true than ever. It can be really complicated to figure out what it can do, and the only way to do that is to use it. And so that's what we decided to do at the AAA. I think in retrospect, we were following a model that I hat tip to Ethan Mollick for naming it. Your leadership has to be involved. The empowerment and the encouragement has to come from the top. But then once that's aligned, everybody has to be in the boat. It's the entire crowd has to be part of the process. And from the crowd, by empowering everybody across an organization, you will develop a lab. You will find super users who might surprise you. They might not have been who you expected them to be, and they're not going to be only on your engineering teams. They're going to be across your organization. And those are the users that are going to help you build the future. So we have a big crowd at the AAA. There's over 800 people that work across the business, and they work in different segments of it. But we gave everyone the tools to experiment safely. Of course, we have enterprise tools, but that process helped us start identifying solutions that might make what we do better, what might make the services we provide to our users better, and might help us think about entirely new services. So everybody was not only encouraged, they were trained, they were given access, and asked to think about the ways in which this technology might change what they do or the way their users experience our services. And that led us to build a lot of point solutions. I will tell you, not everything we built turned out to work. The ones that didn't work were just as valuable as the things that did work. Everything we build, the point solutions that we have built, we just make available to users, or if they're for internal operations, to anybody across the organization for free. These are simply new ways of doing what we've always done that are more user-friendly and more efficient, and sometimes, as you know, more accurate. When you get information, it leads to more action, at least with the technology, again, that continues to change and develop over time. We took that information and kept iterating to figure out what it was we could build that was brand new, that didn't exist before. We launched the first AI arbitrator in November. It is a very narrow use case for this agentic system. It is only operating for now in documents-only construction disputes where both parties opt in. There is a human in the loop throughout the process. There's a lot to learn from this. It's a fully agentic architecture. Agents operate at each phase of the arbitration process and are trained to do that part of the process consistently with how human arbitrators have done it. The human who is in the loop for the first part of the process, when the parties are uploading their evidence, their information, their claims, their support for those claims, is the parties. The parties are the human in the loop. And this is a benefit that I hadn't predicted at the front end of building this, but is really turns out, in my view, to be a game changer. Again, something you can do today that you couldn't do before. What the agents do when once they have received the information from the parties, is they organize and parse those claims, each bit of evidence that supports the claims, each legal theory that supports the claims. They then show their work to the parties, and they say, this is my understanding of the claims that you have. This is my understanding of the evidence you believe supports those claims and the legal theory that supports those claims. Did I get it right? And the parties then have a chance to say, no, you didn't. There's this additional piece of evidence, or I think we really had two claims based on that evidence that we submitted. And the agents then iterate until the parties are satisfied that they have been heard and understood. Imagine if judges or even arbitrators, who often have more time in a case-by-case basis, had to show their work in the middle of the test. It would really, really be a game changer for procedural fairness and procedural justice. In the second half of the process, the human in the loop is a human arbitrator. We have a group of them who are on call for these particular cases. They get work product from the agents that they then get to decide whether it's good work product, whether they need to change it before they themselves issue the award. This first build has taught us that there is simply lots more we can do now that we have this technology that wasn't true for the last 100 years. 100 years ago, arbitration was actually an innovation. It was a way to give parties an option for resolving their disputes without turning them over to a court, without turning them over to the government. And now we have new options. So we're building out the AI arbitrator to other case types. Again, only documents, only case types. We are building a resolution simulator, so parties can actually just get a sense of what the value is of their own case. Probably leads to earlier settlement negotiations. We're giving the same architecture to mediators to build out an AI system that can assist mediators. And we are 6 months into building an AI native case management platform. So in 2 years, when parties use our process for any case, they will have the option to use the AI native case. I'm sorry, they will be using an AI native case management platform, and they will have the option to use whatever AI they want throughout the process. Totally up to them. They can choose none, but they can choose lots. Okay, here's the important part. When we began building lots of point solutions, we had far more ideas than we had bandwidth. I mean, far more. There's, as you know, almost an unlimited set of things you can build. And we needed a process for determining our roadmap and our strategy. What should we prioritize? What should we build when? Some of it was we made some decisions to build some things because it helped us learn what we could do ourselves, what we were good at, what we could continue to do, and what we probably needed a partner to do. But apart from that, we're lucky that as a mission-based nonprofit, we had a clear North Star. The mission is the root of all of our work. I actually spent a lot of time going back to the AAA's founding and learning more about the founders to kind of get my arms around what that mission looked like in 1926. Frances Keller, who I'm going to tell you a little bit about in a minute, was our founder. She was a really, really incredible woman. I'll tell you why I think so in a minute. But this is a quote of hers that I have kind of all over my many desks. There should be an institution that brings tranquility and happiness out of the chaos which disputes make in the lives of men and nations. Courts can absolutely do this, but they don't have to be the only institution that does it. And her vision was that the American Arbitration Association could do that. So let me tell you about Frances Keller. She was a tremendous individual who I knew nothing about before I took this job. She was involved in every significant legal issue at the time before the founding of the AAA. She was involved in immigration reform, women's suffrage. Teddy Roosevelt said that he used to believe in women's suffrage, but only tepidly until he met women like Jane Addams and Frances Keller. She changed people's minds about what women were capable of. She was an out lesbian in the 1920s, and she did not graduate from high school. She had to go to work for her family, but later graduated from Cornell Law School, like a tremendous woman. In the early 1920s, she turned her attention to dispute resolution. I always assumed, given the timing of the founding of the AAA, that it was related to court dockets becoming unmanageable because of the Industrial Revolution, and that's false. Actually, Francis Keller was disappointed in the international institutions, the International Court of Arbitration, that failed to prevent World War I. And she had a theory that it's not good enough for large institutions or large governments to be the ones charged with better dispute resolution, that people at the individual level had to have the tools, had to have the ability to decide what was best for themselves. So she really, really had this vision of a democratized access to dispute resolution. And she insisted on it. There was a bit of a dispute between Francis Keller and others who agreed with her and some of the other founders of the AAA. There were some that believed that it should be limited to B2B disputes, and it really didn't need to be a democratized institution. But her vision won out. She felt strongly about it. She felt that if you gave people that power at the individual level, that's how you would change communities. That's how you would change countries. And she believed that's how you would change the world. I absolutely adore her idealism. So you all know this, and I don't have to spend a lot of time on it, but our civil justice system is failing most people. 3 out of 4 state court cases involve at least one unrepresented party, self-represented party, I should say, not by choice. And in most cases, it's because people can't afford it. And I can't think of a bigger threat to the rule of law than that. And the rule of law, of course, is just a set of ideas. It's a set of ideas that's only as strong as the public's confidence in it. And when you believe that you're not included in the rules, that the rules don't account for you, you will stop caring about the rules. There are lots of forces undermining the rule of law right now. The rule of law is in decline in more places than it's not. But in my view, the idea that a social good, like the rule of law, does not account for you is the biggest threat of all. And to me, it's why Francis Keller's version feels more urgent than ever. We have a general purpose technology that can be a catalyst that can change how people resolve disputes. So that's about as exciting as it gets to me. And that brings me to the last part of my talk, which is the new rules of AI, planning for an entirely new reality. Every tech innovation follows a similar path. First, there are the hobbyists, and nobody pays that much attention to them. That's like your friend who got the Google glasses. I don't know if Andy Perlman is on this, but those are the hobbyists. Then there are the automators, the folks who realize that the technology can make some part of what we do today easier, faster, can eliminate it altogether. I feel like the automators have been having a field day the last couple of years. I feel like I have. I feel like I can do so much more than I used to be able to do, in large part because of this technology. And I think that's showing up all over. But it's only after I think the automators have shown us all what we can do differently and not spend as much time on, that there's room for the innovators. That's when the innovators get to thrive. And these are, of course, the folks who can see a completely different future that the technology makes possible. When the movie camera was first invented, filmmakers used it to record plays, which was cool because, only a certain number of people can see a play. And if you can't afford it, or you don't live in that city where it's showing, you still might want to see it. So filming plays was an amazing automation of those plays. It took some time before anybody realized that with movie cameras, you could cut scenes and you could edit sequences and you could add effects. An entirely new art form emerged once people understood the new rules. AI is the same. It's giving us entirely new rules to build entirely new art forms. Continuous improvement is really important. We've been able to do a lot of continuous improvement with the help of this technology over the last 3 years, really. But continuous improvement is not going to be the way we figure out entirely new ways of delivering dispute resolution services, of delivering justice, of delivering legal information. And that's the exciting part about the new rules that this technology has enabled and where we are now. There should be an institution that brings tranquility and happiness out of the chaos which disputes make in the lives of men and nations. And if you believe, like I do, that expanding access to alternative dispute resolution to more people, to more organizations, to more governments will reduce conflict and prevent war, that was what Francis Keller said was the purpose of giving every individual control over being able to resolve their own disputes. It would build healthier societies and prevent conflict and war. Then maybe the future of AI, maybe the new surface area of innovation will be a world with greater peace, prosperity, and harmony. But that future is not promised. It's ours as long as we're willing to lead, as long as we're willing to be in the conversation, as long as we're willing to be at the table. The people building the future with this technology are not primarily lawyers. In fact, mostly not lawyers. And they're excited about what they see and what they can build. And they will build it across industries with or without the people who make up those industries. The technologists can Uber right through our regulatory barriers if we cede the territory by failing to take a seat at the table. I hope my incredibly audacious hope for the entire legal profession and legal community is that we go take a seat at the table, that we make sure that we are part of the architecture of what comes next. There is incredible promise to what this technology can provide for the people we serve, for the people who we have failed for many decades. And without our voices in the building phase, I'm not confident that it will come out right. I want to see that future. I'm excited to see that future. I'm thrilled by how many people are at this conference because it tells me that I have reason to be incredibly optimistic. Thank you so much for inviting me to talk with you all today. I really appreciate it, and have a great conference.
Thank you so much, Bridget. We have 3 extra minutes. Would you indulge me in asking you a question?
I will. Yeah.
So let me just say that presentation was both inspirational and motivating. What you're doing at the AAA to push people forward and push all of us forward is really impressive. And last week when I saw you in Denver, you said you literally incentivize people at the AAA to take risks. So how do we bring that type of mentality to the legal profession in other contexts? I'm talking about law firms, law schools, nonprofits. One of the things that all of us probably struggle with is the intransigence that we're seeing for many reasons, some valid reasons.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it is understandable. There's, you've probably seen, there's a lot of, research on lawyer personalities, and it's, we're less sociable than folks in other professions, which is not ideal because this is a time when you need to be collaborating, I think, across all kinds of barriers to really be successful. We're more risk averse than other professions, also a barrier because you have to be willing to take some chances or there's no way to learn. Like I said, at one point, I think we've learned as much from the things we built that didn't work than the things that we built that worked. And what a great lesson that is for lawyers, that it's okay to build and not have it succeed. We do incentivize people at the AAA. What you were referring to, Satish, is we have all kinds of contests. We have an innovation contest, and we give out cash prizes. We literally want people to be in a friendly competition to figure out what we can build that really is the next art form of what we've done for the last 100 years. There are lots of other fun ways like that. That you can incentivize people within your own institutions. But I think your question is a more important one. How do we do that across institutions? It's definitely part of the solution that we do it within our own lanes. That's super important. But it's just as important that the builders in a particular state bar in a particular state have some buy-in from the state Supreme Court in that state, so that what they build doesn't sit on a shelf for the next decade, but is something that the state Supreme Court can put into practice for the users of that court system. So I've said this is in many presentations as well. It really is a time for radical collaboration, and I don't see any reason not to build your building circles with people outside of your organization. Like let's do some building across stakeholder boundaries. That's the way we're gonna have breakthroughs.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And we are so honored that you joined us today.